Hey y'all, hey, welcome to the channel. So, today we're going to be talking about something that is different than the other things that I've discussed previously. And it's something that I witnessed this weekend, and I think it's so important. I am a champion of boys, of men, and raising happy, healthy, and whole boys. And so, I want to talk about emasculating men. And so, I looked up the definition to get it right, to make sure I had it right. And so this was the definition that was given of emasculate. Deprive a man of his male role or identity, and or make someone weaker or less effective. So there's always a lot of talk about toxic masculinity. I don't know that there's as much talk about emasculating men. So a few days ago, I was observing an interaction between a husband and a wife. So it was a whole family sitting at a table, and I was not eavesdropping, but they were close and the woman was loud. So even the wait staff didn't know what to do. So she was going off on her husband because he was late getting to the table, bringing his sons to meet her. And she had been sitting there, but it wasn't long because where we were had just opened. Like, they just started seating people like 10 minutes before. So she may have been sitting there. She came in after us. So she may have been sitting there 5 minutes. I don't even know if it was 5 minutes. But she got up to leave to go find them. And then she came back and he was with her. And she went in on him. I mean, she was cursing left and right and asking where they were, and just, I told you when I was sitting here. And I felt really bad for the husband and her son sitting at the table. And the wait staff, like I said, they didn't know what to do because they were like approaching the table, but they were kind of hesitant. And this went on for about a good 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes where she was just going in. And I was like, this is definitely an example of emasculating your man. Husband, it was a definitive example of that. But not only was she emasculating her husband, she was doing this in front of her sons. So imagine the ripple effect. And these were, her sons were younger. They weren't like 4 or 5. They looked like they were probably like 7, 8, 9. So they're impressionable. They know what's going on. They know the words that she's speaking. And I'm sure this wasn't the first time. So how often do we as women, as wives, emasculate our husbands because we're emotionally charged about whatever the situation is, and we don't stop to think about how they may feel or respond, or even how our kids are perceiving what we're doing to our husbands. So the husband wasn't saying very much. I mean, he was saying things here and there, just like a little bit. His voice was very low. I really think that he was trying to de-escalate the situation. I could tell that he felt really embarrassed because the wait staff, again, they didn't know what to do. We were sitting right behind them. So when I say we, it was my family and I. And so it was, like I said, I really felt bad for the man. And I felt bad for her sons. And so I just think that we as women need to think twice before we respond in the way that she did. Because, I was thinking as I was sitting there, what must her sons be thinking? And how will that in turn affect them later on in life? And so if you heard my podcast, or if you've heard me say anything in terms of raising sons, I always talk about starting with the end in mind. And so I know as parents, we're not perfect and we're going to make mistakes, and we're flawed people, right? However, sometimes some of the things that we do in a moment can affect our kids for the rest of their lives. And so the way that she went in on her husband, not just if it had just been the 4 of them and they had been in their room, that would have been one thing, but they were in a restaurant with, like I said, we were sitting right behind them. The wait staff was coming and going. It was a whole thing. And so I just want us to think about that. I think about, what emasculating a man looks like. I think oftentimes, again, I don't know that we talk about it that often, and I don't know if women all the time know what it looks like, but that was a prime example. I mean, she was berating him in front of her kids like he was one of her kids instead of like her husband or her equal. She was talking to him like he was a kid. And so I think that's a good example of oftentimes what men talk about in terms of being emasculated, not feeling, being treated less than. And so a lot of times that takes their voice. And so if that takes their voice as men, that didn't start there. It could have started when they were like the sons of this husband and wife, watching a woman respond to their dad the same way. And so they don't voice their opinion. They don't voice their concerns. They just kind of get run over by women, run over by, colleagues, just kind of run over. They don't take a firm stance because of, what they witnessed. And so I just want us to think about that. We can... the power of life and death is in the tongue, and we can build up or we can destroy our boys and our men. And so I really want us to think about that when when we're talking or when we're trying to convey our feelings or emotions to our spouses and in front of our kids, or even when we're trying to convey information to our kids, right? Because you can have a son and he can be grown and you can still emasculate him. And so we want to build up. We don't want to tear down. And so toward the end of the dinner, the breakfast, she came back around and she did say that she apologized. Something else had triggered her, and that's how she responded. But the way that she blew up, it was like her apology, the way that she responded, her blow up was so huge that her apology, it almost, I'm glad that she did apologize, but I was glad she apologized for her family, because like I said, I was embarrassed for him. I was embarrassed for her kids. But like I said, her apology was almost minuscule in relation to her reaction to the event. And so I just want us to think about that. I want us to always consider the end in mind, and always know that not only are other people, not only were they impacted, but other people were watching, because my sons had some questions, and so we had to have a discussion about that. And so it's really important that we take the time and make note of affirming our sons and our husbands, building them up and not tearing them down. There is a way that when you are upset about something that you can respond, and I'm not saying that you can't do that, but there is a way, and that was not it. So that's my tidbit for today.